All right, we can see you, Chris. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you, I guess. Yeah, I think.
Well, welcome to the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center's 40th annual Tejano Conjunto Festival. Chris, earlier today we showed Chulas Fronteras and we showed Del Mero Corazon here at this Conjunto in Film and Video. And we're really glad to have Chris Strachwitz zooming in all the way from California with us tonight. Big round of applause for Chris Strachwitz. Can you hear us, Chris?
No, I couldn't hear the audience, but I can hear you.
All right. Well, you said you had a few words. You wanted to tell us a little bit about your films and your work and the preservation of conjunto and other early Americana music, Chris.
Well, first of all, I was always curious why the Tejanos call it conjunto music, but that word means group, you know. You can have Cubano conjuntos, you have, Puerto Riqueño conjuntos. Uh, at least in Mexico, they call it música norteña, because it's from the north.
Right.
But don't you think it's kind of a misnomer, the Tejano part? Anyway,
It's just
it
the
is.
way it developed here. Conjunto Tejano, Chris. Yeah.
And of course, little groups. Anyway, I was so lucky to be able to make this film with Les Blanc because, I just started because he had made some really nice films about blues singers and so on. And I felt nobody was paying any attention to this incredible music, which I now realize was really in its heyday at the time when we did it in the mid 70s. And I don't think we would have ever been able to do it since then. And even before then, well, I won't even want to talk about because I don't know what came before. But anyway, I was so lucky just to meet all these amazing people that opened up to us and shared their music, their stories. And what started as a documentary of simply the remaining recording stars like Lidia Mendoza and Narciso Martinez, and maybe Los Alegres de Terran, or somebody like Conjunto Bernal. Anyway, it turned out to be just this really wide-ranging film about the whole lives of the people whose music this is. And we had the wonderful help of Guillermo Hernandez at the time, who was just his undergraduate work at UC Berkeley at the time. And I think Les and I, after we did some filming, we advertised at UC Berkeley here for any Chicanos to come up and see what we've done with the stuff, Mm-hmm. And he was so impressed, Guillermo Hernandez. He said, "This is the only time I've ever seen something real, And but it was just so lucky that from Rumel Fuentes on and his brother, and of course the Pingüinos, whom I had recorded already, uh, it just gelled. And then Jerry Abrams, I remember an attorney down in the valley, uh, he certainly facilitated things. But everywhere we turned, people were happy to take part in this because I think they figured, well, this crazy German seems to really love this music, and he knows more about our own records than some of us do. Mm-hmm. Because I've quickly felt that records to most musicians were simply meal tickets. You have to have a record to get good gigs and so on. Of course, nowadays those records are the only documents we have of what the music sounded like in those days. And of course, again, I think we were so lucky to catch this in its absolutely amazing, evolving heydays. And that's all I want to say right now. But if you wanted certain individual stories, how we got Flaco in on it, or how we got so-and-so involved in it, go ahead and ask me some questions, Juan, because you were there at the start. I remember when you started that whole Conjunto festival in San Antonio. Mm-hmm. And I always felt, well, I always accuse you guys of being somewhat nationalistic about it because to me, Norteño music and the Texas part were all one delightful music. Uh, and the borders were easy to cross in those days. It wasn't this horrible walled area and all that kind of horror show.
Mhm.
It was a different world at that time. Yeah.
Well,
So go ahead.
over the years, we did present some of the Conjunto Norteños. We presented Los Alegres de Terán here one night that performed also with Ramón Ariala y Los Bravos del Norte. And we presented Palomo y el Gorrión one year here at the theater.
Yeah.
We've had kind of cross-national conference on Conjunto Tejano and Conjunto Norteño. And this year, after many years, we're presenting a night of Conjunto Norteño that we're presenting Los Cachorros de Juan Villarreal, and then an all-female band, Las Phoenix from Houston, Texas, and other people from the Valley. So, yeah, we recognize while we focus on the Conjunto Tejano for the most part, and it is called the Tejano Conjunto Festival, we realize that our music crosses borders, right? And that the Mexican Norteño and the Conjunto Tejano are really brothers and sisters. We're accordion and bajo sexto based, right? But we've developed distinctive styles on both sides of the border, right?
It's definitely, and it's still there. That's the amazing part. I'm sure if you talk to Gilbert Reyes, did he tell you the story about how he first met us when he was just a little kid?
He has, and in fact, Gilbert Reyes is here tonight. He's here in the audience. Shout out to Gilbert Reyes from Honer Accordions, who's been a longtime supporter of the Tejano Conjunto Festival. Hector Saldaña here, a music writer from San Antonio and now working at Texas State University, the Whitliff Collection, wanted me to ask you about your work in the preservation of early, Americana music and conjunto and norteño and blues and Cajun zydeco. Did you do this intentionally, or did you just happen to fall into it because of your love for the music, Chris?
I guess I just it started as being a record collector, you see. And as soon as I might as well focus on the music of your area. I immediately began to realize that there were a lot of these little labels around the area. And soon I found out that the ones it said with accordion, duetos, and it was just, although I still don't speak Spanish, but I just totally fell in love with the sound of it. And and I just got involved more and more in the history of it because there were still so many people alive. Like I actually met the Chavarria brothers, who made extensive recordings in the 20s and 30s. And because Fred Zimmerli knew them well, he had Trio San Antonio, which again was sort of a strange misnomer because everybody thinks of a trio as being a vocal trio, but he said, Chris, before the accordion came in, you really didn't have that accordion, but you had to have a duetto at least. And so there are usually three people involved, and that's what he called it, a trio, Anyway, to me, he was one of the most delightful lilting accordion players, And anyway, and when I finally asked Jeannie, let's see, who was Mir, Mr. Wolf's widow, you see, who had Rio Records. I remember I stopped by that store one time and asked her, who do you think I should record? Because I liked Fred Zimmerli a lot. And she just said, Chris, there's this one boy here. He's very handsome and he's going places and he really knows how to play. His name is Flaco Jimenez. Well, I'd heard him, but I didn't think his singing partners were nearly as good as Los Alegres de Terrano, that kind of duetos that I really liked. But it turned out that he was really an extraordinary person, and I'm so happy to have met him early on. And he became really, as far as the Anglos are concerned, one of the most attractive people in the film. But anyway, it just went on and on, and every place we turned to. I remember when I asked Ramiro Cavazos, he is maybe I think he's still alive. I hope
He
the
is.
bajo player was Los Torneños.
Yeah.
I'd met him down in the valley. I said, how can I get a hold of Los Alegres de Terran? Is there any chance to that? And he just said, yeah, el teléfono, right? He called them. And it was just wonderful. Our interpreter called uh, Tomas Ortiz, no, not, Eugenio Abrego,
Right.
which was really a stroke of good luck because Eugenio was a real outgoing guy. He loved to have parties, and he was just so full of joy. And I'll never forget when he finally came over, and I must have talked his head off, and finally told him about all the records that I liked by them. And I finally asked him, we're doing this documentary of this music, and you're this super group that's really happening, as was still happening at that time, And I asked him, how much would you ask for if you did 3 songs for a movie, for example? And he said, what do you offer? And I said, well, uh, Eugenio, all I can really is offer you $300 for the 3 songs. When do we start? I think it was just a matter of a regalo that was really important to him. And we immediately went to his family house and interviewed the whole family and just had this amazing open relationship with them. And he took us down south of the border to the hermanos that had that big ranch just south of the border. Were they Cardenas? Yeah, I think
Cardenas.
so. They were very traditional norteño musicians. They were wonderful people. They had a huge ranch down there. And anyway, and then Romel Fuentes, of course, I got acquainted with him, and he was an extraordinary protest singer, although I never could really get used to his very short corridos. You see, I expected them to be the long kind, like they were back in the old days when they wrote Gregorio Cortez or various other real important ballads. But his were very, very short. But I didn't realize, well, that's the attention span that you have to deal with most people. They don't want to hear the whole story. And many of them may know the story, but what they want to hear is a certain element in a corrido that proves how brave the guy, defended his rights or his stand in the world. Anyway, I'll let you ask some more questions.
Well, I just want to congratulate you on the production of Chulas Fronteras, and now 50 years, and it's become a classic. And I love the way you wove in the corridos and the music and the culture and the life and the family lives of the people, along with the politics of the corridos and of the Chicano movement. Really great. And I also wanted to mention here that as a preservationist, I think one of your great legacies will be the Frontera Collection that's at UCLA. If y'all don't know the Frontera Collection, it's online, it's digitized. He's digitized how many records, Chris, do y'all have in that collection?
Oh my God, I think it eventually came to about 17,078.
Wow, 78s only, and then you have...
Only 78, and about, I forget how many 45s there are. There must be about 40,000 of them.
Wow.
And there are at least 5,000 or 6,000 LPs.
Wow.
And I mean, it is definitely one of my insanities to collect records, you see. And I did that with a vengeance, especially when I found out that nobody else was paying any attention to this material. And that there were such really extraordinarily powerful ballads written at that time, especially in the late 20s and early 30s, about the conflict between gringos and Mexicans in Texas and so on. And I'll never forget when what became, of course, Professor Guillermo Hernandez, at UCLA, who started the whole Chicano studies thing down there. He was the one who helped us uh, really get things going because he came from as a student to watch what we did. And he found in my collection the most beat up record that I almost didn't pick up because it was a two-part corrido about, let's see, who was the guy? I always forget his name. Ramon Delgado. Ramon Delgado. It was on an early vocalion from the early 30s. And I remember I went record hunting with somebody in San Antonio from door to door. And usually I wouldn't pick up records if they're in that bad a shape, but I did because I knew if it's a two-part corrido, that's something. And wouldn't you know it, because it was so worn out. That's why Guillermo Hernandez picked it and transcribed it for that wonderful booklet that he wrote about songs of the Chicano movement. I think, what was it called? Canciones de la Raza. He did a little book of about 12 really significant songs, He included one of those, along with Gregorio Cortez, of course.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah.
And
Go ahead.
Dr. Americo Paredes, the great.
Well, he did, he collected one of the early, many, many verses along the border.
Right.
And then unfortunately, Guillermo died so early, and then a fellow named Jaime Nicolopoulos really helped me.
Yes.
It was another amazing meeting because, you see, after I had recorded the Pingüinos in Piedras Negras, Coahuila, I came back to Berkeley and asked my friend Les Blanc whether he knew anybody who spoke Spanish who could help me transcribe and translate these songs. And he said, "Oh, I know the Spanish lady. I'm sure she can help you." Well, she came over and I turned on the machine and she just sat there saying, "Where are these people from? I can't understand a word they're singing." Because she was a Spaniard, she'd never heard anything like it. And so a fellow named Charlie Musselwhite, who's become a real well-known blues singer since then, he was working for me as a packing man in the warehouse. And I happened to ask Charlie, "Do you happen to know somebody who speaks Spanish?" And he said, "Chris," in his wonderful Mississippi slow accent, "I got just the right man for you." I said, "What's his name?" "James Nicolopoulos." I said, "Come on, a Greek guy that speaks perfect Spanish?" And Charlie said, "You better believe it."
Wow.
And it was true because Jaime had spent, I think, almost 15 or more years getting to know every landing strip in Mexico, but he quit that business because he saw most of his friends getting, arrested or killed, or it was or the beginning of a tough drug business, in those days. And he got his degree, and he just totally fell in love with this whole corrido thing too. We did the book on Lidio Mendoza together, and I don't know, I just had the most wonderful help along the way. And then I got to know the Tigres, you see, and we even went to California and caught some of that music out there, with Chavela Ortiz and her Brown Express that she had back in the 80s, I guess it was. And I remember little Joe La Familia, he also was really keen about, when we did Chulas, and so he helped with the Del Mero Corazon. And I mean, everybody just gave us a helping hand. It was just really extraordinary.
Well, Chris, I want to thank you for joining us this evening and zooming in from California live. And thank you for all your many, many years of preserving our music, la música de Conjunto Tejano, música norteña, as well as all of the other music that you have collected and recorded over the years and preserved, and now through the Frontera Collection, have it there for history and that people can access it online. It's a tremendous amount of work that you're going to be have gone down in history. And we have a special presentation for you here, Chris. I don't know if they had told you already or not, but you are our first inductee into the Conjunto Music Hall of Fame this year at the 40th Annual Tejano Conjunto Festival in San Antonio 2022. And I just want to read this real quick for you, Chris. Chris Strachwitz is the founder of Arhoolie Records and of the Arhoolie Foundation, both of which have been instrumental in preserving and distributing conjunto, Mexican-American music, and many other critical styles of American vernacular music for decades. His recording and preservation efforts of historic recordings, as well as promotion of many of the greatest artists in Texas Mexican music, has been a key support for conjunto culture for more than half a century. Strachwitz conceived of and underwrote the groundbreaking milestone film documentary Chulas Fronteras and Del Mero Corazon on Texas-Mexico border music, produced with Les Blanc. And with James Nicolopoulos, he authored the book-length work Lidia Mendoza, a family autobiography. The Strachwitz Frontera Collection of Mexican and Mexican-American recordings he created is the largest and most important archive of the music and remains an invaluable resource for conjunto music fans around the world. For these many accomplishments, we are pleased to induct him into and give him the Narciso Martinez Award for the Conjunto Music Hall of Fame. And it says here, the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center presents the Narciso Martinez Award for the Conjunto Music Hall of Fame to Chris Strachwitz for your profound contribution to conjunto music at the 40th Annual Tejano Conjunto Festival in San Antonio, May 17th, 2022. And here's your award, Chris. I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah, I can see it.
Can you see that? I have right here.
Thank you so much.
And we'll get this out to you, Chris. We'll package it up and send it to you. And again, just so glad that you could zoom in with us this evening. And you're the first inductee this year. We'll be inducting 7 other people tomorrow, in fact, and on Thursday, and over the course of these next few days here at the Tejano Conjunto Festival. So congratulations and thank you for all of your many, many decades of work, Chris.
Well, thank you for so much. I really appreciate that. And you, Juan, you deserve one of those too, that definitely, because if it hadn't been for you, I don't
maybe someday.
festival would have gotten off the ground. Yeah.
I'm still too young, Chris.
Well, anyway.
Well, thank you so much, Chris.
Thanks.
And I do want to mention that I think, as I'm looking back on these 40 years of the Conjunto Music Hall of Fame and the Tejano Conjunto Festival, I think you're the only Anglo to ever be inducted into the Conjunto Music Hall of Fame. Big round of applause for Chris. I was going to say gringo, Chris, but I changed it to Anglo.
That's fine. I got to tell you how Ramiro Cavazos introduced me to his wife, you see. He said, "This is Senor Cris, el fanático de música norteña."
There you go. Well, thank you again so much, Chris, for all your decades of work, and you still have, I think, many more years. Looking at you here on the screen, on the big screen here at the Guadalupe Theater, we have you on the big screen, Chris, and in front of this audience here tonight, and it looks like you still have many more years and much more to give us.
Well, I hope so, and I hope you guys can keep it going too. I know Gilbert is doing a lot. He tells me all about these young kids who are now into playing accordion, especially I think on the Mexican side of the border. Yeah. And we've had a couple of really nice women performers on some of our Arhoolie Foundation celebrations. Las Dos Rosas, for example, I love their singing. I don't know if you ever picked them up on them. They don't play accordions, but they play guitars. Mm-hmm. And anyway, there's some. Oh, there's the sister and her brother. Whether they're really young, they're really making it big. They're I think they live in Houston now, but Rio Verde,
Oh, yeah.
I
Mhm.
can't think of their names, but I know Gilbert knows them all.
Yeah.
Hello, Gilbert. Keep up the good work with all these really
And what are you,
wonderful.
you're what, 92 years young now, Chris?
No, I'm only 90. I'll be
Oh,
91 in 1st of July. Yeah,
okay. Well, you look
I'm,
great.
I'm,
You look great.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
thank you so much again. And we're going to have Hector Galan come on next. But thank you
Okay.
so much, and hope to see you over there in California soon sometime.
Good. I hope so. You can
All
try
right.
and get by here. Take care then. Thanks for everything.
Thank you. You have a great evening. We'll talk to you later. Big
Thanks a
round of
lot.
applause for Mr. Chris Strachwitz, our first inductee into the Conjunto Music Hall of Fame this year at the 40th Annual Tejano Conjunto Festival in San Antonio. Thank you, Chris.
Bye bye.